June 24th, swim a lap day. Not really our thing, right? But
Okay.
but it is swim a lap day.
Where am I going to swim a lap, Steve? Come on.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I did look for the chocolate eclair. I did look for the donuts. I did look for the burger day, but it's just not there today, Mike. It's just swim a lap day.
Food to celebrate today. How about?
I know.
It's Wednesday.
That's what
Wednesday.
Yeah. Wednesday 24th, live stream day for you, man, right?
Yeah, excited. Workplace Innovator Interactive, folks. Noon Eastern every Wednesday. My co-host Maddie and Madison Doika and I talk to amazing workplace leaders and have a great conversation with our audience. So enjoy having those interactions. And we're going to talk about some interesting things today, I think. Future of workplace and what it looks like in the years to come. And I would like to get your opinion on some of this today. Maybe it ties into the topic that you put into our title today.
Maybe it does. Maybe slightly. I just have to note there, Mike, I don't know if you realize this, but you rolled into your mic DJ whenever you're introducing your live stream.
Oh, I did.
Your voice goes in. It's funny. No, it's good, man. It's good.
I try to be just my authentic self. The same guy you hear. This
I know who the authentic guy is. Don't you worry.
But DJ Mike takes over.
DJ might just takes over, right? There's nothing you can do about that. But that's just how you roll. Right. So today, I want to talk about Millennials Future of Work, which is kind of in line with what you were referencing. Millennials Future of Work. What do they really want? And this came from a webinar I participated in yesterday. And the webinar was for 100 Women NexGen. So this is a non-for-profit, a young women's network that is over 15,000 people who are part of the network. There wasn't 15,000 people on this webinar, but that's sort of the size of the network. And what they do is they publish webinars daily for this group to listen and participate in. So yesterday it was organized, and although it's my week, a few days off, I wanted to take part in this because it was kind of interesting, and it was also a colleague from NASDAQ who asked me to participate, so I did. And I'm glad I did.
If you need Steve to participate, become his friend first, and then ask him to participate in a webinar or a live stream. He's there for you.
It's so true. It's so true. Dear
but
me.
This is how Steve spends his vacation time. Most of you would like to maybe get away, do something more relaxing, but Steve spends it.
Go to some random beach in Delaware, wherever.
Maybe go to a beach, but no. I'm sorry to cut you off. But how was it? So this was a good webinar. I'm excited to hear.
It was good, and I want to go through some of the topics because I think it's really interesting because when we think about workplace, we think about what the future of workplace is, and you think about your webinar, you've got a live stream you've got coming up later today, and people of my age, people who are around my age or maybe a little bit older, have a perception of what the millennial population want from the workplace today and in the future and whenever lockdown all ends. And the webinar opened up yesterday with 2 questions. And I just want to discuss the 2 questions with you, get your views. And then I want to go through some of the content and the questions that were asked, because I think it's also helpful for us to sort of talk those through as well. And we can sort of let the guys know who are on that webinar that, we've continued the conversation here.
Yeah, so, I have to give a disclaimer up front, Steve. I have a little bit of a skepticism around the millennial generation and the generational differences to begin with. Not about millennials, about the generations and focusing on generation. Don't want to burst your bubble, but before we get too far, you mentioned you're an older generation. You're Gen X like me. I'm a Gen Xer.
Yeah.
Gen X. What are you?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
45, where that falls.
You might be you're on the border between Gen X and old millennial, because there's old millennials, young millennials, then we got the Gen Z.
Do you want to be? I mean, there's a question. Do you want to be known as an old millennial or?
I don't know.
There we go.
I don't know. Maybe the whole thing is we throw it out, but younger people, maybe earlier in their career, earlier in that stage of life.
Yeah. So this is you're absolutely right, and that's what I was trying to get to clarify, but you kept interrupting me. But anyway, I'll keep going. Oh, you do well. So this is folks who have typically just come out of college, who are starting in their career and in that first phase of maybe the first 5, 6, 7, 8 years of their work life.
Sure.
So that's who this audience is, right? And it is predominantly women because it's a women's network, right? So it sort of gives you the context and helps frame where these answers are coming from. So the first question was, has your organization provided you with information on what their return to office plan is? And the poll was almost 50-50 between yes and no.
Wow.
That staggered me. That staggered me. Now, I don't know whether it's not because of geography in the sense of a lot of organizations are waiting until they have a real plan in place to roll out what that return to office looks like, because there are still so many locations that actually haven't given guidance on what the return to work looks like, a return to office looks like. You know, I'm just thinking of New York with the different phases, and businesses don't know how this is going to happen. So there's a little bit of that. But the next one is the real thinker, the real one that sort of perplexed me.
All right.
And the question was, when the time comes and your office is opened, do you anticipate your office, going to the office, changing from what it was prior to lockdown? Right? So will it change? The perception, well, I'll give you the answer, then we can talk about the perception. The answer is 90% said yes.
Sure. I think so.
My perception of that would have been more 50-50 in a sense of the perception anyway I have is it's the millennials that want to get back to the office. That's the perception. And the older generation don't really want to, because they've got families, they've got other responsibilities. And in this situation, it's actually better for them to work, and they want that flexibility in that aspect of it. The perception for me anyway was always millennials. They live in the city. They want to be close to a social life, and it's easy for them to access the office. And I therefore would have anticipated that they actually would have wanted to go to the office more. So 90% said that they want that change. I don't know, what's your thought?
I don't know what, reread the question. 90% said, will it be different when you go back? I wonder if they were, so it depends on the interpretation of that question.
Right. So it's, the amount of time you spend in the office, will it be different? That's the sort of the concept of it.
Meaning your habits change, not will the office be forced to change.
Yes. And maybe I missed, when I was paraphrasing, I missed it a little bit, but it is about time in the office.
Okay. Because the offices are different. The new normal is a different world. Distanced, face masks, all kinds of protocols in place for health and safety, temperature checks, so forth. So we know the office is going to look different and will be different for a period of time here, maybe months, maybe years, maybe forever changed. I don't know. But if that was the question, then certainly I know it's going to be different. Now, do I want it to be different when I return? And again, I'm a bad example. Go ahead. Clarify.
Let me clarify. So this is, will their behavior change? In other words, will they go into the office more or less once the office lockdown, right? So
your behavior change.
Yeah.
Okay. Now this is an interesting topic, because again, I hate generalizations. I hate saying millennials think this, older people think that.
This Gen population Z said this.
This population was a specific demographic, women, young women professionals. And you were surprised by the answer of that they would 90% likely change their behavior about how they interact with the office, maybe go in less, work from home more. And that surprised you, because the common understanding is that young people, millennials, the younger generations find community, find their identity is much more integrated with their work life integration, not work-life balance. And they must be missing the office more than anyone, right? They must be missing going to work more than anyone. Well, I wonder if they've found ways to replace it and don't miss it as much as we all thought they would. Is that what you're taking away from this conversation? It sounds like
I think so.
They thought they needed it because that's where their friends were. That's where their gym was. That's where their good food was. That's where they were all being attracted to these wonderful modern workplaces for all the amenities and all the reasons we talk about here on this podcast or this live stream, my podcast, Workplace Innovator. It's all about creating an experience, right? And that's what they were used to and demanding during the war for talent. And now they've been forced home, adapted, adjusted, 3 months in, and you ask the question, hey, you're anxious to get back to your barista, your coffee maker, your free food. Oh, by the way, that's not going to be there in these early days of returning to office because it's not safe to have those cafes open. I don't know. I think it's all tied together with that. I think we have this vision. I want to explore this on my live stream today, and I want to explore it with you. What do you envision? Close your eyes, Steve. Close your eyes and envision you're walking back into your office building for the first time. And what does it look like to you? What feeling comes over you? Do you all of a sudden feel uncomfortable because you got a mask on? You're worried about the distance between you and the person on the elevator. You're going to your workstation and you sit down and your head down and you're trying to keep yourself isolated from others for health safety reasons. And you're like, why am I here? Is that what you think? I mean, that would be my thought. If I was forced to go back into a workplace and it wasn't given to me a clear vision of why I'm going back and what the purpose is and what the value is, the plan in place to collaborate, to have those interactions with people in a safe way. I don't know if we've done a good job as workplace leaders to communicate that vision yet. So when people think about it, they're excited about it. Maybe that's why the poll results are what they are.
Maybe. But I was sort of take your question and then sort of add to the thread.
Which one? There were about 12 questions in there.
I know.
That's what I
but
do, right?
I'm going to pick the two I like.
Okay, just do that.
And you know how you define a question you like? It's a question you have an answer for.
There you go. Pick the one you have an answer for.
So, I mean, whenever you ask me to vision what I think about walking into the office is really hard for me to see right now because it's the thought of, for me to get to the office, I have to get on the train, I have to use public transport.
Oh, yeah.
I have to get on the subway. So to actually see that vision is like really hard. But
you got to get there. That's right. I keep forgetting. And that's so indicative. And this is something I had a conversation with a friend about yesterday. We all have our bias, right? Our bubble about, we live in this bubble. We're experiencing our world, our work world, our personal lives. And we don't think about all the other people and what they're experiencing, what they're used to, and what it takes for them to get to the office. I don't take public transportation. So when I think about going to an office, I drive there, I get out of my car and I walk in, and that's where the experience begins for me. But you have this whole other experience. Your mind immediately went to just getting on the train first before getting to the work, to the building itself, which is interesting.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's sort of, I said, what came front of mind. And then the other thing, like going back to that survey, it's, I didn't take it that it's not because they don't know what's in the office. I think their perspective has changed in the way they work, the more time they have, the ability to eliminate that commute time. I mean, if you take big cities, most people, I mean, the average commute time is about 110 minutes or whatever it is, right? Round trip. So that's what people gain when they don't actually have to travel to the office. And again, there's the commute time, but then there's also getting ready, right? Getting ready seems a lot easier in the morning whenever you're not actually getting ready to go into the office. There's less pressure in the morning. There's less stress. There's a lot of aspects. Then there's getting home, right? It's been able to eat dinner that little bit earlier in the evening. Which is also a great thing because I know when I used to get home from the office, I get home at 7, and then if you wanted to eat, then you're eating, going to bed relatively quickly. So there's a lot of aspects that I can see where I see that coming from. But the big question, the other aspect I think for that generation is, and I think it applies to how people are perceiving going to college, why people are deferring the next year of college life. Because they go for the experience, right? They're in the city for an experience. They don't know what bars, restaurants, what, movie theaters, places where they go hang out with friends, where that's going to be. And the work going into the office also provides everybody with an opportunity to have social interactions after work. So often you catch up with a lot of people in the city because everyone's in the city for work, and then you go meet people afterwards, and be it networking events, be it corporate events, be it other things around your social life, that's what also pulls you into a city. And no one really knows what that looks like. So I think it's the perception has sort of shifted, and I think that's why the score was high. But it really surprised me. I did expect a 50-50 for a variety of those reasons, because I think there's probably 50% of the population, the millennials, live relatively close to the office. When I say close, their commutes is probably not 110 minutes. Their commutes are probably 20 to 30 minutes. In New York City, probably jumping on the subway or something like that.
But still, I'm hearing two things from you. I'm hearing two things. Is it this temporary situation we're in with COVID-19 and the closure of those bars and the restaurants and the nightlife and the movie theaters, and the fact that they know, should they go back to an office, that after work activity is not necessarily there. Also, the time in the office won't be the same because of the new protocols in place that we discussed earlier. You're saying, you're describing those things as the new reality that they all recognize, but then you're also saying that your gut tells you the reason they don't want to go back is not because of that necessarily, but because they've experienced all this new positive impact of working from home and the experience of all the gain time and the less aggravation and the time getting dressed and commuting. And it sounds like, your gut's telling you that it's because of that and that won't change.
It's because of both. I think it's because of both. I think
okay, because I'm saying when one
they're
changes,
both related.
A year from now, say a year from now, hopefully we get back to a post-COVID situation where the restrictions are lifted, bars are open, restaurants are open, people feel safe going there, movie theaters, whatever. And the cafes reopened, the barista's back at your office. Do you still think it's 90%, or is it something less that decides I don't want to go back to the office?
So it's a good question. Obviously, I guarantee you, whatever I say, or given my opinion, I'll be wrong. I guarantee it. And
we
can
always
come
guarantee
back.
those things here. That's on the bottom. There's a little disclaimer at the bottom.
The disclaimer.
Guaranteed opinions expressed here on OSW Daily are wrong.
So here's the question I ask myself, right? And this is how I sort of approach it, whether it's right, whether it's wrong. But I ask myself, okay, if I did something for 12 months, what's the likelihood of me changing what I'm currently doing to go back to something I did? Right?
Yeah.
And so therefore, if I did elect to leave the city and rent somewhere on Long Island, just as using New York as an example, be it New Jersey, be it Hoboken, be it wherever, right?
Sure.
And I got the ability to have an apartment for myself because I paying the same money for my own space, or as I'm paying to share with roommates in the city. And I have that experience for 12 months. Will I then make a different decision to go back to the city to share with roommates in 12 months? I don't know if people will do that. I don't know. Some people will because they don't like living by themselves, or they don't like their commute, or they find they want to be more closer to that city life, or they may find actually I can go do that city life and then go home with the likes of Uber or Lyft, easy to get access back and forth. Is that something that I'm able to do? Also, 12 months alone, people have developed, have evolved. We'll find new ways to do things, new ways to work, new ways to collaborate, build new friendship networks wherever we choose to live. And again, I'm just generalizing here a lot, I know. But in essence, it's sort of like, I think it's tough. I think it's tough whenever somebody does something for a short period of time. It's easy to go back to what it was. But whenever there is a shift for a period of 12 to 18 months, it's a lot harder then. It's a lot harder to go back.
New habits are formed. I think new habits are formed already, three months
into
this.
Yeah.
We're all experiencing that. But let's get back to that webinar you watched, because those were the experts. What did they say? I mean, did they give any insight into where their minds are now and also 12 months from now, or did you get what else was covered?
No, this was just a survey that they answered, and I was participating, so I was on the panel, so you can judge whether the information being provided.
You can judge right after that.
Oh, for sure. I don't blame it, but there's three main topics that was discussed, and it's really interesting to see the mindsets. One was leadership. So they're concerned about leadership, how leadership is going to change through these times, how they as individuals, as their career develop and progress, how they're mentored, how they evaluate, or how they build bonds with team members, how that will change, and how leadership is going to change. So that was something that really came through. and it was really interesting to sort of have that conversation about some of the insights and thoughts from the panel.
Well, aren't they anxious to get back to re-experience or get back to experiencing those mentor-mentee relationships in person? And
Well, you know,
are they
it's
getting it online?
and that's sort of where a lot of the questions was going. So how do we do that today? And is it easier? Is it easy to reach out to people today? Is it easier to reach out to people today because everyone is home, everyone is virtual, everyone has that, I don't know, I don't say a little bit more bandwidth, but I think people are a little more patient today, a little more
Mm-hmm.
empathy today. So I think they're more accepting to people reaching out. So a lot of the questions came from, on that, well, what if people reached out to you? How would you react? What's the best way to approach? And, you obviously, you have your podcast, people reach out to you quite a lot. I don't know what your appetite is whenever people reach out to you today, as opposed to was, it may not have changed because I know who you are, but
Yeah.
in essence, I mean, are you open to people just shooting you a note and asking you for a quick coffee just to catch up? And, these young guys who are, ambitious, or what are your thoughts? How would you react to
Oh,
that?
I absolutely. I am, and I always have been. Those are
Hmm.
the rare opportunities, and when those come up, I'm happy to enjoy pouring into someone or being a part of a mentor to mentee relationship for sure. But when you first start asking about people reaching out, there have been a lot more people reaching out. But you've taught me, Steve, and maybe it's my interaction with you about being the skeptical. What's the question behind the
Question behind the
question?
question.
So I often will dig into why are these people asking to have a meeting with me, and I very quickly make a decision, and just I don't have the time. In fact, I think I have less bandwidth, and we've discussed that on this
Hmm.
live stream, is that I have less bandwidth now than I ever did before. And maybe where I would have taken a call, at the airport or traveling somewhere, and set up a time to chat with someone who I don't yet know, because I'm, you know, finding myself in a place where I can talk, but I can't do other work, can't edit a podcast while I'm traveling, for example. But these days it's like head down, 2 podcasts a week and live streams on Wednesday, daily OSW daily here, other regular work I do. It's a lot. So I think I'm less accessible now. And I don't like that about myself. And there's some things that I've missed, in recent weeks because of that, meetings, things that I would normally have been a part of. And I think it may be harder to explain to people because the perception is, oh, he's at home. Why isn't he tuned into
Yeah,
this?
yeah.
Why isn't he tuned into this call or this meeting or this discussion? And it's hard. So yeah, it's everybody's got their individual situation. But back to the webinar, you're on the panel. So leadership's a great question. I mean, we have to adapt, and leaders will have to, especially here in the near term, do things differently. And I'm seeing that happening all around me, which is a good thing, I think. What other topics came up?
So personal development, obviously concerns about that today, right? How do young folks build teams, connect with people? That was a huge thing, as I just mentioned. And then another thing is what's going to be the change in the workplace? How will the workplace evolve in the future? And again, similar to like I said to you, I sort of took the position of whatever I tell you the workplace is going to be in 3 years, it's going to be wrong, because we don't know, right? We don't know.
No.
But what I do think will happen is, and I've said before, I think people will get up, they will look at their calendar, they will see what they have on their plate for that day, and then make a decision, where is the best place to do that work. And then of that, the sort of question that came back then is, do you think we'll become more outcome based in how we're assessed? Or will it be more of you sent X amount of emails, you did this amount of keystrokes, you spent this amount of time, when you logged in at this time, you logged out at that time.
Mm.
How will that go? So there's obviously concerns that people are going to be measured that way, as opposed to delivering on outcomes. And I suspect actually it may go the other way. Depend obviously the nature of the job. I think people will be more delivered on outcomes, because I think one of the benefits, and you could look at it as a benefit, you could look at it as a challenge to people, is it's it is a little easier to assess people's performance and what they deliver in this environment than actually being the person who's first in the office and last out of the office, because there's the visual of actually seeing somebody there. You can see them busy, where in this environment, people will deliver. You can judge by deliverables. So what are they delivering, right? You know, and I think you can cut through that. So I can see that as a benefit, but also I can see that as a challenge for people. I mean, how do you demonstrate what you're delivering, or what your various outcomes you're contributing to?
Yeah, I struggle with this because I've always lived. First of all, I'm a bad person to ask about what it's like returning to the office because I've never been an office worker. I've always been remote. And then as far as deliverables, I've always been left alone because it's very clear whether I'm giving a speech, doing a webinar, delivering a podcast. If it hits, it's published and it's out there. I'm very visible. It's very easy to see if I've been doing my work during any given week. So I wonder in the broader sense, how do you prove your value? How do you show the tenacity and the work ethic and the fact that you're a go-getter and differentiate yourself from that other person who, maybe in the office, if you were side by side and your manager or your leader was looking and seeing your activity, there's that perception that comes through very, very quickly about how busy someone is, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
So it's harder to prove that remotely when you're not seen. And I know there are these tools, I'm not familiar with them, but there are these tools to monitor keystrokes and activity. I can't imagine. And I don't know if that's being done. I've never heard about it being done in my organization, but I assume they have the capability if they wanted to. And maybe that's a topic for another day, because I noticed we're running out of time here.
I know. I just noticed the time as well. I know.
It's another one of those half hours, Steve, that goes by like that. So I appreciate this, but lots of things to talk about as we adapt and adjust to this new normal of remote work and the long-term implications of the office and the future of work.
Absolutely. And so if you have any questions or any concerns or anything that you want to, the audience has on this, do make a comment below. Reach out to us. If you want to send us an email, oswdaily@gmail.com, reach out to us and we'll happily respond and answer your questions. And as Mike just mentioned, if it's about going back to work, don't ask him, because he doesn't go back to the office anyway, So
I talk to a lot of people. I've heard some things. I know
you talk to a lot of people, and I know you know a lot of things. So Mike, look, thanks. Have a great day, and we'll pick it up again tomorrow.